There comes a moment in a relationship where you ask yourself whether it's time to leave or whether it's time to stay. The whole should I stay or should I go? And many times, especially if you are in an abusive relationship, and especially if you are in an emotionally abusive relationships where you don't have the markings such as a bruise or a scar in order to push you to the direction of leaving the relationship, you don't really know what are the signs. So I wanted to do this video for you guys to give you 15 signs, 15 signs of when it is time to leave a relationship. Some of these signs will be more of thoughts, some of these signs will be more emotions of when you should consider leaving. And I'll also explain why it is so important that you address these signs, because in order to make sure that you're making the right decision. Now, if you have no idea who I am, my name is Olympia. And with my studies in cognitive neuroscience and art history, what I like to do, I like to dissect that pretty little brain of yours to see what makes you tick, but also makes you talk. So welcome back. If you are new here, welcome to the G spot, aka the gaslighting spot. This is a place where we talk about gaslighting, emotional abuse, and in this case, 15 signs of when it's time to leave your relationship. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to smash the subscribe button and ring that bell for your weekly Thursday videos. And let's start. So, sign number 1. When your relationship brings you more pain than joy. Now, I am a huge fan of Procon lists. I'm a huge fan of lists in general. And I know it sounds corny, but I've made a lot of my decisions in life, such as whether I should leave a relationship, whether I should move to London, whether I should move from London to America, based on a pro-con list. However, a lot of you do pro-con lists wrong, in my opinion. What do I mean when I say wrong? Especially when you're doing a pro-con list for your relationship, because it's normal to doubt a relationship at some point. There are things that may trigger you, conflict with you, is when you write down those pro-con lists. It's not a matter of which column has the more points. It's, in this case, quality or lack of quality, that is, since if it's bad things, over quantity. So if you have on the pro list, we go on walks, we like the same movies, we like the same food, that's great. But if you have on the con list, I don't remember the last time I smiled. I don't remember the last time I didn't cry before going to sleep. Sometimes I have to hold my breath so he doesn't hear my sobs while I cry myself to sleep right next to him. Now those are very heavy cons. And when you put those, so it's kind of like a mix, it's kind of like a mix and match. So if that con is worse than 3 other of your pros, obviously that con takes precedence over the other ones, if you know what I mean. So it's the severity and the intensity of those cons and those pros that you need to address in order to help you make the decision of whether it's time to leave the relationship or not. And again, if the relationship is giving you more pain rather than joy, life's a bitch already. And supposedly you're supposed to be in a partnership with someone to make it a bit easier, not to complicate things more. Obviously there's going to be conflict in any relationship, but your relationship should be there in order to support you and help you through this cluster of a life we live in. Now, sign number 2, when you live in the past instead of the present. When you first start a relationship, everything's great. Everything is romantic, or everything is either romantic, it's either intense. You remember the first kiss, the first time you had sex, the first fight, the first makeup sex, the first time you went on a date. And you have all these beautiful memories that flourish this relationship that you are currently in. However, there is a thing, I've done a video above on it, the idea of falling in love with the idea of being in love, or just falling in love with love. Now, if your relationship is not reflecting those past memories, then you're kind of living in that past relationship instead of dealing with the current. There's a reason why it's called the honeymoon phase. There's a reason why sometimes relationships later on fizzle out. the intensity, it's great to have that intensity in the beginning, but if you are staying with that person only because of those memories, then you are staying with the past version of yourself and the past version of that person. Now, because I do a lot on emotionally abusive relationships, this is very, very tricky, because abusers will use a technique I keep talking about called love bombing, where they'll pull out all the big cards in the beginning of a relationship. I mean, the chocolate, the flowers, the declarations of love, the poems, the acting out pretty much any romantic scene from the chick flick movies. They will pull out all those cards, so when the abuse starts, you go back to those first memories and live with that off chance and that hope that those memories will return. So if your relationship right now, if you're living in the past and you're not present in your relationship right now, then you're not in a relationship. You are basically in a shallow shell of a relationship of what used to be, which sounds so incredibly cruel and mean, but it's happened to me, and I wish someone had told me exactly like that and made me wake up. So, sign number 3. This is kind of double one. That they expect you to change for them or you to change for them. I've done a video on can a gaslighter ever change, and I say in this video that you can change this can a blank ever change and put father, mother, daughter, gaslighter, abuser, narcissist, and whatever other label you want to put. But expecting someone to change in a relationship is asking someone to basically become someone else than what you supposedly fell in love with. So if you are asking someone to change when that's not who they are, you're asking someone to become someone else. And that's kind of contradictory and falls into the first idea of falling in love with the idea of love. Because, dude, if you're going to fall in love with someone, you're going to fall in love with who they are, with all their traits, good and bad. So if you're asking them to change, then you're asking to be with someone else. Reason number 4, that you keep justifying their actions when they hurt you. They keep rationalizing their actions. So if for example, they come back from work and you ask them a simple question like, what do you want to eat? Or do you want to go out? And they explode and they say, I'm tired, and why do I always have to decide? And why couldn't you have cooked something before? Or in the case of going out, I don't want to go out. Don't you understand that I've been working all day and you've been playing, which I've heard. And that moment, you are starting to rationalize that person's behavior, and instead of saying that, what you're saying is unacceptable and you could just say in a common way that you're tired, you rationalize it in the sense that you're thinking, you know what, okay, he's tired or she's tired, I shouldn't have pushed, I should have already made something for dinner, why would I ask them to go out, I know they're tired, I should be more empathetic and compassionate, which is not true. The way that the person reacts should not have to be justified or rationalized by you. They can communicate in a calm way that they're tired, but if you start rationalizing and justifying their negative actions, then that is a huge red flag that you should be leaving that relationship. Sign number 5, I believe, is obvious. This is a pretty obvious one, that they're causing you emotional, verbal, physical hurt. There's not a lot of explaining to do in this one, even though it runs deep and it's very complex, and I've done so many videos about them. But basically, if you feel that the person is belittling you, disrespecting you, not supporting you, making you question your own reality, your own emotions, thoughts, what happened, it's time to get the heck out of there. That is a huge red flag. And of course, push, slaps, any type of physical abuse, any type of verbal abuse, if that's something that is something that is not acceptable, and that is a huge red flag that it is time to leave. Now, sign number 6, when an issue keeps coming up, when things do not get resolved. Now, when you're in a relationship, it is perfectly fine to have conflict. It is healthy to have conflict because, 1, it shows that you are 2 individuals with different opinions raised by entirely different backgrounds, that sometimes those opinions will clash because it makes sense because you are in a relationship. And reason number 2, that you are comfortable enough to have conflict. You are comfortable enough to express that conflict, to express that difference of opinions. However, the difference between a healthy and a toxic relationship, the difference between emotionally abusive relationship is that how you resolve this conflict. Now, if you resolve this conflict with the silent treatment or brushing it over or demeaning it, then that is a toxic relationship and it's time to leave. If you address the issue and resolve it and talk about it, then that's a sign that that's a healthy relationship. Now, if the issue keeps coming up, this could be, for example, the issue of you keep saying that what I say is not important. You keep belittling me in front of our friends. You keep saying things such as what you said was stupid or what you said was not true. These things are very, even though they may seem light at the moment, they're pretty severe. And putting your partner down in front of your family or friends is not acceptable in any way. So that, and if that your partner is doing that and that issue keeps coming up and you keep saying that, hey, what you did tonight at Tom's house wasn't great, or what you did tonight at my mom's house wasn't great, this is a sign that it's time to leave that relationship, because clearly you have not resolved the issue. Clearly the issue is not being addressed, and either both of you or one of you is not willing to change. And that goes to my previous reasons of when it's time to leave a relationship. That is, you cannot force a person to change. So sign or thought or emotion number 7 is when that person puts little effort in the relationship. Now, for me, half-assing a relationship is a big no-no. Relationships are hard. They take work. Once you're past that honeymoon phase where everything is new and everything is great and you get into the whole routine, that's especially the part where you need to start contributing, because that's where things can go easily into a slope and can easily fizzle out, and you can get the situation where one person gives more than the other person. So if you see that you're the only person that's putting any effort into the relationship, you're the only person that's planning the trips or planning the dates or asking about or seeing how the person's doing, and basically being the sole contributor, that is a big sign that it's time to leave that relationship. Because if the other person is not willing to meet you halfway, you're pretty much in a relationship with yourself, and it's not a relationship between two people. The other one is similar to the one that I just mentioned, the number 8 sign, is that the other person is not interested in your life. Now, this is another sign that if this doesn't change, that you should leave that relationship, because obviously you are supposed to be the center. I mean, this is the romantic version. You're not actually supposed to be the center of their life. They are the center of their life. But you're supposed to be supposedly the most important person in their life, one of the top priorities of their life. And if they don't take the time and the effort to get to know you, your life, your coworkers, your friends, spend time with your friends and your family, don't ask you about your day, don't ask you about if you look sad, don't ask you what's wrong, don't try to help you, then that's a big sign that you should leave that relationship. Because it's also a sign that you're kind of with a narcissist, because if they have no interest in your life and you are fully invested in their life, then you are giving, but to quote Joey, you are not receiving. It's all about them getting the validation from you. So, sign number 9, when the relationship holds you back. Now, there are many relationships that people are afraid, and this is where I bring my sign number 10 and sign number 12, codependency and fear of being single. These are all together, these 3 reasons. So the reason why a relationship could hold you back is because either you are codependent on that person or you are afraid to be single. So this relationship, instead of you allowing to flourish and become an individual, you are kind of enmeshing yourself in that person's life, or you're afraid to be single. You're afraid to have to deal with putting yourself out there again. I'm coming into terms with who you are, because you have constant distraction next to you. One of the nice things of being in a relationship is sometimes you don't have to think about what you're thinking. Sometimes you can just lose yourself in that relationship, which is not the healthiest thing, and avoid certain feelings and thoughts that you may have. So one thing that I read, which I really love, is a relationship is like a third entity formed by two individuals, which is true. A relationship is kind of your invisible emotional baby. So you don't see it, but you have two different people from two different backgrounds, nature, nurture, very different, coming together, forming something that's called a relationship. Now, sometimes, like I said, the other reasons of when it's time for you to leave the relationship, when you're being codependent or when you're afraid to be single, part of that third baby relationship over there is that you become so enmeshed in the role of being a person's girlfriend or a person's boyfriend that you lose touch with who you truly are. And even though it may not be an abusive relationship, sometimes when you allow it to get so bad to the extent of you don't know how to exist with that other person, no matter how romantic that may sound, that is a red flag that you should leave a relationship, because you need to start forming who you are and not enmeshing yourself in someone else's life. Another reason is that you're afraid to be honest. Another reason why another sign that you should leave a relationship is that you're afraid to be honest. Now, in emotionally abusive relationships or abusive relationships in general, speaking your mind, saying something, saying what you believe, becoming vulnerable at that moment could be a huge trigger for the abuser. And they could call you crazy, they could start screaming at you, they could lash out at you, they could hit you, just because you're expressing what you believe. And if it's a negative thing, obviously, if you get angry, they in turn will also get angry, and then you suddenly are afraid to be honest. You're thinking, what's the point if I get hit or lashed out or emotionally abused? So suddenly you just become very silent. Now, relationships, we hear this constantly, but we don't listen to it, we don't follow it. Relationships are about honesty. Hell no, it's not easy to be honest. Hell no, it's not easy to say what you feel and not feel vulnerable and afraid that you're going to be shot down. And especially if your partner does not respect the way you express those emotions, does not respect how you feel, then that's a huge red flag that it's time to leave that relationship. Because if you can't be honest in your relationship, and when the hell can you be honest? And then I believe I'm either on the 14th or the 15th. I think I've kind of messed these up. But the 14th reason is that you believe you've invested all this time. And you're thinking, well, I've invested all this time into this relationship. I've lost so many years. I have to try harder and harder and harder. And you think that if you do that one more thing, that everything's going to be okay. And the amount of time you put into a relationship, the effort you put in a relationship should not reflect whether you should stay in that relationship or not. Does it suck that you may have lost 2, 3, 10, 20 years of your life in order to come out of a relationship and gain, in your perspective, nothing? Hell yeah. But at the end of the day, you did not gain anything. You gained the knowledge of what you don't want, of the mistakes you made, of the mistakes that you won't repeat in other relationships. You know how many people go from relationship to relationship repeating the same mistakes? If you take that bad relationship, that one bad relationship that you've left because you've identified with these signs, and take all those mistakes and reverse them to avoid them in a future relationship, that could make the future relationship 10 times better than any other relationship you would have had if you had not worked through those signs, if you had not understood why it isn't so important, all these signs that I'm giving you. By the way, I've created for you guys a little prezi. It's basically a guide that you can flip through. I will link it below in terms of what is gaslighting, the most common abusive and gaslighting phrases. It really helps you. It will really help you in this video if you check it out, because you'll be able to see that if you've been told these phrases, how these phrases fall into the signs that I've given you of when it is time to leave a relationship. If you find some of these phrases or some of these signs in the guide I gave you, that you relate to them, and then you come back to this video, it could help you basically solidify your decision of whether you should leave a relationship or not. Now, the last thing obviously is that you're not happy. It's so simple that you're not happy anymore. You do not find joy in your relationship. You are miserable and you just refuse to admit it. Now, I hope this video helped. If you haven't already, make sure to smash the subscribe button and ring that bell for your weekly Thursday videos. And of course, share this video with anyone who you think is debating whether they should leave their relationship or not. Let me know in the comments below if you identify with any of these signs. If you haven't already, make sure to also join my Facebook group where we share experiences and thoughts in terms of gaslighting, emotional abuse, and basically when you feel alone. And that's it, folks.